3 members of the alleged radical vegan Zizian cult have been arrested. Maryland officers brought in Jack Ziz Lasota, the alleged leader of the group, along with Michelle Zajko and Daniel Blank on February 16th.
The Zizians have been tied to 6 killings across 3 states.
I would describe some of the crimes that they're accused of as being demonic.
Welcome back to Grab Your Brew, and if you're new here, welcome. Please like and subscribe. This week we're going to be talking about the extremely illogical new cult called the Zizians. I wouldn't say new. I would say, however, this is an extreme case of where the Popo has failed us many a times. It could have saved a lot of lives. But anyway, go ahead, grab your brew, and join me as I have a banter about the Zizians. Ooh, guys, I have had a extremely emotional week. Yesterday was extra hard, but I basically have been forced into the next chapter of my life a lot faster than I ever anticipated, and in such a short amount of time. So I'm just dealing, and it's all good stuff, but you know, kind of like how as I'm trying to embrace the good stuff, I'm mourning what was. Anyway, so I've had a lot of technical difficulties too, on top of everything else I've been super busy with. So this is my 3rd attempt. I'm usually done recording by Thursday so I can edit around little tiny feet the whole weekend while entertaining little toddlers. But here I am, Sunday morning, before I'm scheduled to go out with my friend. I haven't seen her in a while, and I need to go give her some snuggles and take her over a painting, and I am recording this, so God knows when I'm going to edit it. Hopefully it will be my usual Monday upload, but let's get on point, because my therapist wasn't available, so I'm trauma dumping on you guys. I'd say this is another case of the Popo failing the people. Let me rewind a little bit, because I'm not going to give you a backstory of each individual one. If you do want that, comment below, because they would need basically an episode themselves. It's too much. So we're just going to hit on the key points in this video. But it does go to show you that finances, upbringing, all of that good stuff, you know, nature versus nurture. Crazy is going to be crazy regardless. And when crazy seeks out crazy and they all become friends, you get a cult. Sounds right. And in this case, it was the Zizian cult. And this not so long ago group of talented tech people trying to save the world somehow turned into what we've had sprawled all over our news. Like, they have gone coast to coast on a crime spree, basically. But how did they ever get there? And have you ever heard of the rationalist movement? The rationalist movement is a philosophical and intellectual movement emphasizing on reason and logic as a primary means of understanding and acquiring knowledge, so often contrasting with the sensory experience, like touch, emotion. But they believe that the reason and logical deduction are the most reliable ways to arrive to the truth, rather than relying solely on sensory experience or intuition, such as like when you have a gut instinct about something, ladies, stay out of your man's phone. If you suspect it, leave it. But anyway, that has nothing to do with this. But anyway, I am a big believer on trusting your gut instinct. It has never steered me wrong. When I've gone against it is when there's been an issue. But for some reason, these people say that apparently you have the thought prior to the experience. I do want to put an emphasis on logic and mathematics, because rationalists, they often draw inspiration from logic and mathematics, viewing them as models of philosophical inquiries. And rationalists seek to identify the fundamental universal truths that can be grasped through reason. And the thing is, it's not even just going to work or school or whatever. The rationalists take this into their everyday lives. So this is genuinely how they feel. They don't deal with emotion. And I'm not even going to say 9 out of 10. 10 out of 10, they are atheists. They, long story short, have high intelligence. They're atheists who are obsessed with AI taking over, conspiracy, or whatever you want to call it. Conspiracy, we all know it's going to eventually happen the way the world's going. And this group of people deal with no emotion and straight logic and very science forward people. They are an extreme group. They would like, no, we can't. They kicked Z out of this group. That is like the equivalency of a Nazi. It's like a KKK person saying, "No, dude, you're too racist for us." It's like the equivalency of that. So what did he do that made such an extreme group think he was too extreme?
Jack's ideas were too extreme, even for them. One of which was the idea that the two hemispheres of the human brain had different genders and were actively trying to kill each other. But being kicked out didn't mean that those ideas just went away. Jack took his online username, Ziz, and created a group that became known as the Zizians. And they didn't just want to talk about their ideas online, they wanted to create a new way of life.
Isn't that a cult? I keep hearing cult-like, but I'm pretty sure that is a cult. But let's go on.
And in 2017, they took those ideas seriously. Somewhere off the coast of California, they acquired an old, rusting World War II era tugboat, and their plan for it was radical. Create a floating community of free-thinking individuals who would live outside the rules of society, focusing on philosophy, AI, research, and radical veganism. And after 5 years of living on this boat, they probably thought they had achieved this. But locals who saw the Zizians on board, they described them as dirty, isolated, feral humans. And after this rusted old boat started actually sinking, the Zizians were forced on land, and that's where things turned dark.
So let me stop him right there and introduce you to the leader of the group so you can follow this crazy timeline. Because after all, the cult is named after him, right? Considering they are supposed to think with logic is an extremely illogical timeline, so I won't blame you if you do get confused, because I got confused doing my murder board. So first we have the leader, like any cult, very much confused about their identity, but somehow think they're far superior to everybody else. I would rather say that it's more of they're so insecure with their self that they come up with this fake persona in their ego. They just push this ego down people's throats, trying to give them the impression that they are better than everybody else and they are so much weaker. But these weak-minded people eventually like, yes, I believe that red is green. It must be green. You tell me it is green, so it must be. Stupid people. And of course, because everybody's broken and damaged and nobody knows who they are, not taking a dig at transgender people, but hormones that they be taking be, your body's not supposed to take it. It makes you crazy. A woman loses her after giving birth from all the hormones, and we are designed to carry those hormones. But that's neither here nor there. I have transgender friends that some are extremely happy with their change, some are not. So we're not going to debate that. We are, however, going to talk about how the fact that they somehow kept rubbing this in people's face. That's the only reason I'm pushing that. They kept rubbing in the face of what gender they are and all the things they believe in. If you would like a backstory on each member in this case, as the case is moving forward, because obviously this is going to remain in the current case file, please comment below. backstory followed by your favorite emoji. Engagement, subscriptions, please, if you enjoy my content. It really helps my algorithm so I can reach more people. So Jack Lasota, aka Ziz, is in his early 30s, a transgender male to female vegan. And they faked their own death back in April 2022, according to the obituary in their hometown of Alaska's newspaper. Just as one does.
But it wasn't long before their landlord was stabbed multiple times and later shot to death. Police believe the group is also tied to the shooting deaths of Richard and Rita Zajko, who were killed inside their Media, Pennsylvania home. Their daughter, Michelle, is also tied to the Zizians group. Federal authorities recently launched a manhunt for her arrest. But in Maryland last night, officers found Zajko along with leader Jack Lasota. They were arrested in Allegheny County, where they're charged with trespassing and possession of a handgun. The circumstances surrounding their arrest are still unknown, but authorities hope questions about their past will soon become far more clear.
Investigators believe 34-year-old Jack Lasota is the leader. 26-year-old Daniel Blank and 32-year-old Michelle Zajko are some of her followers. Zajko is from Delaware County, and she is the daughter of 68-year-old Rita Zajko and 71-year-old Richard Zajko. They were shot to death inside of their home on Highland Drive in Chester Heights back on New Year's Eve in 2022. At the time, investigators said they did not believe it was random. Court records detail surveillance video where Mom could be heard around the time of the murder. And investigators say Zajko had purchased a gun with a similar caliber to the one that was used in her parents' killing.
On September 7th, 2022, Jack Lasota, who uses female pronouns, died after falling overboard during a boating accident. The Coast Guard couldn't find her. It appeared to be a tragic end for the promising, highly educated whiz kid from Alaska.
Okay, so at this point, they should have been behind bars, right? Maybe? Yes? We can agree they belong there, right?
Zajko was identified as a person of interest at the time of her parents' murder, but has never been charged. According to court records, this Zizian group has now been linked to at least 6 killings, including in California and most recently, Vermont. A few weeks ago, David Mallon, a U.S. Border Patrol agent who worked near the Canadian border, was killed in a shootout with other alleged Zizian associates. We now know that the gun used in that shootout was allegedly purchased by Zajko.
That is until 3 months later, when an elderly man was brutally attacked in Vallejo. Among those detained by cops on the scene was none other than Jack Lasota. 2 months later, her ghost would crop up in another curious location when police raided a hotel room during a search for a firearm used in the murders of an elderly couple in Pennsylvania. Lasota, it seemed, was back from the dead. But not only was she alive, now, following a series of increasingly bizarre, disturbing events, it has emerged that the whiz kid daughter of an AI expert lies at the center of a twisted tale that spans 6 murders or suspicious deaths across 3 states. There was the attack and murder of an 82-year-old man, a New Year's Eve execution-style murder of a couple, and then there was the Inauguration Day shootout between 2 suspects and Border Patrol agents in Vermont, leaving an agent and a suspect dead. On their own, these cases are each shocking, and on the surface, they appear to be unconnected. Yet each of these horror events led back to a loosely connected radical group of highly educated, vegan, and mostly transgender women that's been described as a cult and dubbed as the Zizians. Described as a death cult, Zizianism is an extreme offshoot of the rationalist movement, a psychological movement based on the belief that reason is the primary source of knowledge. At the heart of the Zizian cult is Ziz, an individual previously known as Jack Amadeus Lasota. Lasota earned her degree in computer engineering, graduating from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. She interned at NASA and Oracle, even had a stint at Google. It was then that things got weird. Lasota began pushing the belief that people have conflict between their two brain hemispheres, only one of which is good. Lasota began sharing these ideas and beliefs in a blog titled Sinceriously. The lengthy blog posts, which ran from 2016 to 2019, included titles such as My Journey to the Dark Side, Vampires and More Undeath, Punching Evil, Self-Blackmail, and Engineering and Hacking Your Mind. In one, Lasota described 2016 as the year she made a turn to the dark side. Lasota and two of her followers, Michelle Zyko and Daniel Blank, were just arrested this week in Frostburg, Maryland. Face charges including trespassing, obstructing and hindering, and possession of a handgun in a vehicle. This is a crazy case. Will more charges be added?
So had the Popo done their job right back then, more people would be alive right now, right? Or is my math not mathing? Because I need somebody to make this make sense. How all the things that they've done, and yet somehow we're able to continue to do. Make it make sense, guys. It's mind-blowing to me. It's the most unusual case that I've looked into. I found so much repetitiveness, but at the same time, no reason or rhyme for anything that they did at all.
Now, Zachko is in custody again. She, Blank, and Lasota are all facing charges including resisting arrest and possession of a weapon. NBC News describes the Zizians as smart, techie vegans, many of them transgender women, who all share an obsession with the dangers of artificial intelligence. Lasota, who goes by Ziz and identifies as a woman, is the alleged ringleader.
Their friends say those in the cult-like group are not only highly intelligent, but also highly armed. And in the past 5 years, they've been tied to 6 killings, another attempted murder, and last month's shooting death of Border Patrol agent David Milan. The officer was shot dead in an exchange of gunfire 20 miles from the Canadian border. It happened during a traffic stop where the 2 armed women inside the vehicle are linked to the cult-like group that's accused of leaving a trail of violence from coast to coast.
Remember how I said cult leaders have this sense of ego and entitlement, which, after all this crime in unaliving, this TWAT decided to tell the judge on a hearing to decide, like, basically whether he's going to get to bail or not, which, of course, doesn't deserve. But he's like, oh, I'm starving here in jail. You're so inhumane. I need vegan food. I can only eat vegan food. I'm sorry. But last I checked, vegan food is extremely expensive. It's more expensive than organic food. If you don't want to deal with the meals you're given in jail or prison, I don't know, maybe don't do the crime and you won't have to deal with the consequences? Or is that me just being more logical than your own group? Maybe. Apparently I'm a better member than you are.
Lasota at one point interrupted the judge to say he would starve unless he was given vegan food in jail. So, who are the Zizians? Here's everything you need to know.
This has all the makings of a Netflix cult docudrama. These Zizians appear to be a group of mostly transgender computer scientists who met online, united in anarchist beliefs, including radical veganism, and turned violent.
In 2016, Lasota, a transgender woman and computer programmer in the San Francisco Bay Area, began blogging under the online persona Ziz, sharing intricate and often meandering theories. The group is involved in practices including unihemispheric sleep, a state similar to hypnosis where people sleep with one eye open. The practice is intended to demonstrate that the brain's 2 hemispheres are separate identities that, according to Lasota's blog, often desired to kill each other. Lasota and 3 others were arrested at a 2019 protest where they donned hoods and Guy Fawkes masks While protesting a Berkeley rationality and cognitive bias nonprofit, they called it a protest against sexual misconduct within rationalist organizations. By 2020, the Zizians had established a base of sorts in Vallejo, California, first living on a boat, and then in box trucks on a property owned by landlord Curtis Lind. He didn't charge the group rent during the pandemic, but once he did request some payment, the Zizians refused to pay up and leave despite eviction warnings. Lind, frustrated with non-payment and growing tensions, gave them a final deadline, November 17. 2 days before that deadline, on November 15, 2022, Lind was attacked. According to police reports, one of the Zizians, Emma Borhanian, swung a sword at him, partially blinding him. Lind, acting in self-defense, shot and killed Borhanian. Local authorities arrested 2 Zizians, Alexander Leatham and Suri Dow, charging them with murder. Weeks later, the Zizians scattered. Some traveled across state lines, with Lasota, Michelle Zajko, and others reappearing in Pennsylvania. And more murder followed.
An elderly couple that were killed in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, were shot execution style in their homes on New Year's Eve.
Police found a gruesome scene. Richard and Rita Zajko, Michelle's parents, had been shot to death. Authorities quickly focused on Michelle Zajko, who had a rocky relationship with her parents. A doorbell camera captured audio of a car pulling up, a voice shouting "Mom," and a struggle before gunshots rang out. Police questioned Zajko but did not initially charge her. Instead, she was arrested weeks later for obstruction and trespassing in an unrelated incident while hiding out in a Pennsylvania hotel with Lasota. Both were soon released.
So these people are just as ugly on the outside as they are on the inside. This is exactly why I tell my son, you are too handsome to be ugly, so stop acting ugly before you become ugly. And I'm not commenting just off their looks alone. Trust me, because I know I'm not exactly a 10 myself. But they just look dead in the eyes. Like, they have no soul behind there. I guess you're not... To do what you guys have been doing, clearly you wouldn't need to have a soul, right? So this is around the time that they found out, obviously, when you see a person that you're charging for a crime that apparently died some time ago. They found out that Zazan, blah, 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 whatever the fuck you want to go by, faked their own death. But I thought faking your own death was a crime. Is it? Hold on. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Google. Huh. It's not a crime to fake your own death. It's only a crime if you do it for like insurance purposes or to commit crimes. Let's see if it's that way in England. Hold on. Apparently, it is the same in all Western countries. So, just to let you know, guys, I don't recommend it. But if there's no crime involved, like insurance purposes or murder or any of that stuff.
By January 2025, the Zizians had returned to California, and Curtis Lind, the landlord who had barely survived the sword attack, was still prepared to testify against the group. On January 17, 2025, Lind was found murdered in his home. Authorities charged another Zizian, 22-year-old Maximilian Snyder, with the killing. Prosecutors allege Snyder was sent to kill Lind specifically to prevent him from testifying. 2 days later, the Zizians' activities took an even deadlier turn. On January 20th, 2025, U.S. Border Patrol agent David Mayland stopped a suspicious vehicle in Coventry, Vermont. A car connected to Felix Bockholt and Teresa Youngblood. Moments later, gunfire erupted. Mayland was killed in the shootout. Bockholt also died at the scene. Youngblood was shot and wounded, but survived. Authorities quickly linked the handgun back to the Zizians. It was bought by Michelle Zajko, who was still a suspect in the murder of her parents. By February 16, 2025, law enforcement had gathered enough evidence to make a move. Now, with Lasota and key members behind bars, authorities are piecing together the full extent of the group's crimes. Cases are unfolding in multiple states.
So, of course, this will also be in the current case files as the police pull together all the evidence in the timeline of what these sick individuals do. This is the perfect definition of these people are so smart that they are dumb. They really thought they were unstoppable. And to be fair, there is plenty of scenarios where they should have been stopped and they didn't. So we gave them this false entitlement. Popo, stop trying to rush through cases and deal with the problem. You're paid to do that. But anyway, these are the true definition of so smart that they're so dumb. Well, guys, thank you so much for grabbing a brew with me today, and hopefully I will be doing less trauma dumping next week. But as you can probably hear in the background, I have little voices yelling for me, so I appreciate you guys so much. Please, please, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have an amazing week. And remember, emotions are good. Let's deal with emotions.
Subscribe.